Welcome, everyone. Whiteboard Wednesday. Why am I having a problem saying that these days? Anyway, all right. So, jumping into another one for you this time, we're going to be taking a look at more self-defense strategy, specifically one of the frameworks that we give students to kind of help make sense out of things. But before I get ahead of myself, let's kick this off with a story, right? I have this student. His name is Richard. Richard started with me when let's see, it was 1990. And he was 45 at the time. So do the math, and Richard's still with me. As a matter of fact, he was in class last night. Okay. So, but anyway, way back in the day, we were working on a couple of these kata, these forms or examples from our lineage, and some variations and things like that, right? And so Richard was asking about adaptation and sparring and things like that, which we do. We just do them at different times, right? One of his questions had to do with, like, why are we even doing these forms? Why are we doing these examples? Because they seem kind of counterintuitive, right? You're not going to be able to do a set step-by-step kind of thing in a fight, right? I mean, a fight is just chaos, right? And I said, you're absolutely right. Okay. What we're looking at doing is making sense out of the chaos. So the process that we're working in a couple of different ways, that's what we're working on, right? We're working on this making sense out of chaos. Okay. So we're going to come at this from a couple of different perspectives today so that hopefully we can get our heads wrapped around it. Okay. So let's start off with this idea of kata, right? I mean, I'm going to give you a five-phase framework eventually as we go down the line, but I want to take a look at a problem in the martial arts world, right? And it's martial arts, self-defense, fight training, whatever, okay? And again, we're going to stay away from, well, no, you know what? We're not going to stay away from sport because it's still going to work out pretty much the same way other than options, okay? So regardless of whether we're talking about on the street, no rules, or we're talking about a fight in a ring, whatever, okay? But there's a huge problem, as I see it, right, in the martial arts, self-defense, and fight training world, okay? And what that is that there's things have been kind of split into two primary camps, right? Two primary ways of doing things. In the Japanese, right, there's two words that kind of reflect this. One is kata, right? So the word kata, let me use a better color here, right? Kata means form, or in the context of the way our martial art operates, right? It means example, okay? As in, here is an example of how this principle or concept or fight tactic, strategy, idea, or whatever would show up or could show up, okay? So there's a bunch of these things that were passed down, right? So kata, right? So what you have here is this structure. I think most people understand what that is, okay? So there's probably a bunch of people that are watching that are like, yeah, no, that's shit, man. Yeah, that's not the way fights happen, okay? And there's other people that are like, no, it's it, okay? But stay with me, okay? And then the other one is waza, okay? In this case, waza means action, right? It can also mean technique, but we're really down at a skill set as opposed to, like, kata are skills strung together, okay? And we'll cover that in some other session, right? Waza is an action. So I could be stepping back to avoid in kamae. I could be delivering a strike. I could be applying a lock or a joint lock or a pressure point technique, whatever, okay? So waza, right? I'm just going to define this as action. And while it could mean technique, right? I don't want to confuse that because a lot of people call kata techniques or a variant example that a teacher teaches, a technique, right? So I want to stay away from that because if we don't understand the nuances from these other languages, right? It's the same thing with our meditation and mind science stuff and whatnot, right? When we import these languages from Japan, from China, from Sanskrit, from Pali, whatever, right? A lot of these things translate into like the same English language word, which can really become confusing for people because they miss in their own language how something that sounds the same can mean like two different kind of things, right? Like the word lever, okay? Lever could be a lever, this thing that I push or pull or whatever to make something happen, or it could be a verb, to lever something, right? I can put a crowbar in between the lid and the main body of a crate and lever it to get it out. The crowbar is, in that moment, the crowbar is a lever, but it's not what we would normally think of because it's attached to a machine or whatever, okay? So same kind of thing goes on, but if we don't know the nuances, right? We could be talking about 6 different types of desire. We could be talking about techniques in different light, but if we don't understand what we mean, we're going to get caught up based on ignorance, okay? So anyway, so we have this kata kind of idea and we have this waza idea. So what we're looking at is the kata school is primarily, right, there are these forms. You learn these forms, you're tested on the forms, those kind of things, right? In the waza school, no forms, man. Let me just show you, like, you could do this to the wrist, you can do this to the shoulder, here's a pin, here's those kind of things, okay? Ready? Yeah. You and I, when I say go, we're just going to mix it up and see who can pin somebody to the ground, who can knock them out, who can whatever, right? So, you know, you have a lot of karate type martial arts, right, that we can think of as kata based, right? But in here, we've got everything from jujitsu to, and I mean like BJJ type jujitsu, because there's a lot of jujitsu and jujutsu schools that have forms, right? But boxing and Roman Greco wrestling and things like that, right? So you've got skill sets and things that you can apply, but there's no kata that anybody's given, okay? Here, kata had been passed down, right? So in each school, you kind of have to approach things a little bit differently, right? And just like there are 2 primary camps, there's 2 mindsets, primary mindsets, where these people, if they're not careful, can actually believe that they're going to do a kata in a fight. Maybe, okay? But ultimately, what we're probably going to get are bits and pieces of if we've done the process right. But there's this camp, right, that believes that kata is the way to go, man, okay? And then there's another group, maybe these people have been in fights or they just like that kind of atmosphere, right, where no, man, there's no form. No. You just like mix it up and it's all about intuitive and it's all okay. They're not wrong, okay? But here's what I see, right? There are positives and negatives to each of these, right? And I'll talk about our approach or how I see these things working, because there is a third group. It's much smaller, but there's a third group that actually sees the positives and negatives in each of these. And if we could pull the best of both worlds, well, shit, that would be awesome, wouldn't it? Okay. But let's talk about those for a moment. Okay. So first thing we'll take a look at here is, well, let me use a different color again because I'm just all color coordinated today. Let's make it all Christmassy down here, even though we're nowhere close to Christmas. Okay. So let's look at kata. Okay. So here's the thing that happens with ego. And we have to be mindful, right? Unless we're just going to go bouncing around the world, attacking people that don't agree with us or gravitating to things because they speak our listen. And so we're going to believe anything that has the word ninja attached to it, martial arts attached to it, Santa Claus attached, whatever, right? We're just going to ad hoc buy into it because somebody used buzzwords or spoke to us the way we want to believe things are. We got to be careful, okay? And the reality is, in any realm, you can't get the positive of something without also getting the negative. Same thing, right? If something bad is going on, right, you can turn that around and make something out of it. Maybe not in the moment, but you can learn something from it. We can learn from all of our mistakes, okay, and present things forward, okay? So an example of that would be I bought a house, right? My wife wanted us to own, so I used my military benefits to secure the loan, got a house and all that kind of stuff. It's really great, right? I don't have a landlord that I have to answer to. I can do whatever to that house I want, right? I don't have to get somebody's permission, all those kind of things, right? But I also have to pay the taxes on it that the landlord will be paying. I have to pay for all the bills because most rentals, right, come with some kind of utilities attached, whether it's water and sewer or whatever, right? Now, maybe in your area they don't, but in my area, rentals come with that kind of stuff, right? Taxes are all absorbed into that kind of stuff, right? The landlord's taking care of the mortgage and the loan, so he's handling all that kind of stuff. He's taking care of insurance, whatever. So unless I get renter's insurance on my stuff that's in it, I don't have to worry about that. And like, I have to fix anything that breaks or pay to have it fixed. Okay. In all rental agreements I've ever had, any repairs over like $25 or $50 US, landlord had to take care of. Anything under that, so that covered light bulbs and crap like that, right? Then I had to, right? But can you see how got this great benefit of a home ownership, but also, right? And also I have this asset, right? So if I want to leverage the equity to get a home equity loan or a line of credit or whatever, I've got this asset that I can work with, right? To whatever degree. But if I were renting, I don't have any vested interest in this, and I can actually be held accountable for any damages, alterations, or whatever that I do to this thing, or visitors to my house due to that thing. Okay. So either way, right? There's positives and negatives. Okay. So same thing with kata, and let's do a different color here. All right. Kata and waza. So we're just going to look at these things in two different ways here. Okay. Now I don't have a lot of room to be writing all this stuff down here, but let's focus on things one at a time. Okay. So I want to make sure I don't miss anything on my notes here. Okay. So the positives of kata, right? Got three positives for you. Okay. So the three positives, one is it's a structured example as to how an expert would resolve a problem, punching attack, grappling attack, whatever, from the perspective and the principles and concepts of that given school. Here's how an expert would do this. Okay. So it's an expert role model. Okay. So if I want to be an expert, here's an example of how an expert would do it. Okay. Kata, there's also other things in here that I'm not listing. I'm just kind of throwing out three things today. But another thing that would fit in here that I give my upper level students. So my beginners learn that a kata is an expert role model. So if you're my Foundations of Ninja Self-Defense program, which we just relaunched about 4 weeks ago, and we're letting people in and all that kind of stuff, right? That they're learning this stuff, but kata in this case is an expert role model, right? You want to be an expert, don't go changing things. Here's how an expert would handle this. So it's your job to pull out of this model not just moves, but mindset and strategic thinking and whatever, right? Why are they doing it this way? What's the benefit, right? What kind of control advantage or whatever does this way give me? Okay, right? So, but in the advanced levels, I tell all my upper, intermediate, advanced students that your kata are bad habit breakers. So if you can't do the kata, it's not the kata's fault. It's been around for centuries. Okay, there's something that you're doing or not doing that's inhibiting. You're hitting a wall, okay? And it's generally not where you think the mistake is happening. It's generally a move or two back, and what's happening is it's getting worse as you move along, okay? But anyway, it's an expert role model, okay? It's also a reproducible scenario, right? It's something that we can do again and again the same way, which means it will allow the same mistake to happen at the same time, right? So it's a predictable. Right? It's a predictable model. Predictable? Yeah, predictable, okay? So it's predictable. That means if I'm making a mistake at a certain point, let's say it's angling, timing, whatever, right? I can reproduce that again and again. So if I'm trying to fix it, there's no guesswork, right? It's going to happen here. So be ready for that, right? So you can fix it, okay? And then the third thing is it's an example of strategy and tactics that can be varied and adapted based on variables, okay? So it's a launching point. Okay? So it's a place to start, and then we can start asking, okay, well, what if he's not throwing a straight punch? What if he's throwing a hook punch? Okay? All right. Now, my timing, or my angling and whatnot, that's going to have to shift based on the angle of the attack. What if he's throwing a lead instead of a lunge? Okay, now I'm going to have to adjust distance based on that. What if he's taller, or shorter or whatever, that means that his reach is different. Each person's reach is different. Okay, now I'm going to have to develop the skill to be able to ride off that thing. So I end up in the same place distance-wise from that person based on their reach, not my habitual movement. Oh, shit. Okay, great. Right. So it allows the variations all based off of those kind of things, right? But what's the negative for a kata? Okay, what's the negative? The negative is, one of the primary negatives is it's not a fight. It's not the fight. Right? It's what everybody says, right? It's not the fight. Okay? So fights don't happen this way. Right? We'll get back to why would we even do it anyway in a bit, right? But here's an interesting little thing. In one of our 9 schools, 9 official schools that, anyway, long story. Anyway, one of the 9 schools that we teach, the Gyoko school, the first kata on the first level scroll is called koku. Okay, koku, it can be translated a couple of different ways. It can be translated as tiger sky. That gives it a certain meaning and flavor and feel. But the primary translation of koku, well, maybe it's not the primary one, but either way, one of the translations is false void, right? False void. What the hell does that mean, right? Okay, so void is this, that's a bad English language translation of what we're talking about. The word ku, right, can mean, we translate it as void, but a better translation is devoid. What that means, it is empty, right? There's another word in Sanskrit, shunyata, okay? And it means void or emptiness, okay? And it doesn't mean that there's nothing there, right? Like the empty cup from Zen and stuff like that. It's not there, right? Got a fly attacking me. Anyway, right? What we're talking about is it's more like clay, right? It's moldable, okay? So you can turn that into anything you want, right? It's adaptable, those kind of things, right? So it's open, right? There's lots of potential there. Anything can happen, right? Unless you take that form and stick it in an oven and then bake it, and now it turns into a rock of whatever shape it was, right? So that shape now is kata, but the word false, right? What we're looking at here is a form that's giving you an example or a hint as to how to operate in a formless, in a situation, right, where anything can happen, right? What most people do is they tend to just learn the step-by-step pieces of the kata, of the form, okay? And they miss really important lessons, like what is the feeling in koku? You mean feeling? It's a form, man. Here's step 1, step 2, step 3. No, what's the feeling? What is the overriding strategy that you have? Okay, the overriding strategy, other than kicking his ass and leaving him on the ground, my strategy is to find the most natural way. Right, the feeling in koku is playing in space. Right, and it's not just like playing around. It's letting him show you the way, right? This is a common theme through a bunch of our schools, different kata and things like that. As a matter of fact, every kata on that first level scroll points back to that lesson from koku, okay? So here's the irony, right? It's a kata showing you an example for how to operate moment to moment in a bad situation where he's leading, okay? You're not doing things by memory. You're learning the lessons that are buried in this thing, right? But the downside to a kata is it's not the fight, okay? It doesn't allow for the adaptability. It doesn't allow for freedom. In a lot of martial arts, right? If you're doing one of these things, and let's say your partner throws something a little differently at a certain point, and you adjust, you do something to adapt to that, and then you get back on track and finish the kata, you failed the test, right? I had a friend that took a test like that, okay? Failed the test. Right? Because he didn't faithfully spit out the kata as such. Now, there's times in our training where there's no variation, right? You do the kata because you need to know that part. Then we can start to break it up. We can create variations, all that kind of stuff. But then eventually we want to get past it because it's an expedient learning model, right? But either way, right? The main downside to a kata is it's not the fight. Okay? Fights don't operate like that, right? It's not a prearranged dance. Okay. All right, so let's switch this, right? So let's go to Waza, right? So again, I'm just throwing out 3 benefits here, okay? And then we'll take a look at the other thing, right? So why would people want to do Waza instead, right? Well, they're not limited to form, okay? There's basically no limits, okay? Unless they're in a sport where there are rules, no limits. Okay, I don't have to use official stances. I don't have to use official strikes. There is no right way other than to win, right? That kind of thing, right? There's no limits. Okay. Next one, it forces adaptation to an opponent's unpredictability, right? So it forces you to pay attention, right? It forces you to be in the moment. Okay. Be in the moment. Okay. One of the downsides of kata over here is people will often be so caught up in what the next move is that if their partner makes a mistake and throws the wrong thing, or if they're an upper level person getting ready to test for one of our black belt levels, and I tell their training partner, okay, I want you to go work with him, and at different points when we're working on a given technique, throw something different. Because I want to see if they're paying attention to what you're doing or they're paying attention to the script in their head. Okay. So there's no script. They're forced to be in the moment and pay attention to what they're doing. Okay. And they're learning to be adaptable. They're learning to be adaptive. Okay. And then the third one that I'll toss out today is it develops an intuitive sense, a feel, right, for finding the way through. Right. I'm just going to put finding the way. Right. I mentioned that with that kata koku, right? Right. Find the way. You need to figure it out. It's a problem in action, and on the fly, you need to figure out, you need to be paying attention so that if something opens up, you can tag it. If something's coming at you, you can block or cover it against it, right? There's no choreographed dance moves, okay? So you've got these things over here, right? But again, like the problem with kata is when they try to break the model, right? Here's another big thing for kata. When these guys try to break the model, right, nothing matches. Right? What I mean by that is, and I don't know if you can relate to this or not, when I used to be in a like kata-based art, and I've been in a bunch of them, right? When I was in these things, if we were doing the kata, if we were doing forms, they looked one way, right? Then we would work on self-defense. And those things wouldn't look anything like a kata. Okay? They look completely different. And then when we would do sparring, well, shit, sparring didn't look like the self-defense or the forms. You'd see a punch or a kick or a stance or whatever that somebody learned, but nothing matched up. It was like you were learning 3 different things, okay? Because once they break this up, a lot of people don't know how to break it up or do things in a way that the sparring looks as close to the form as possible because the forms match fight scenarios. Okay, so there's a huge problem, right? The big problem with Waza, right, is that they can't reproduce the mistakes that they're making easily, right? And they have to hope for 3 things, right? So here they can't. I'm not going to write down the word easily because I'm out of room, but they can't reproduce mistakes easily, okay? Because there's no form to stick to, right? So what happens is they have to hope that, one, when that tendency to make that mistake comes up, they're mindful in the moment when it's happening, or when that condition that causes them to always do the same thing. They have to hope that they're mindful in the moment, right? They have to hope that they remember the alternate lesson in that moment, and they hope that they can access that option from their subconscious storehouse in the face of the habitual tendency that they always do, right? And the problem with that is that when we're under the fight, flight, or freeze mechanism, when the adrenals have kicked in, it's your subconscious that's just pushing everything forward. And the more often we've made the mistake we're trying to fix, the harder it is to get the new thing to happen. Here's just a quick illustration for this, right? And I'll erase it quickly here, okay? Let's say we always do, I don't know, somebody's coming in, and as we're trying to execute a throw, we always wrap our arm around their arm, right? And we're trying to like yank them around our body instead of just kind of snagging them and turning and letting that kind of happen, right? Okay. So, but if we always do this, okay, I don't know, we've been doing that since we were 6 years old, having our first fight. Have we been doing that? We're now 50, 60 years old, 30 years old, whatever. And we started training in the martial arts when we were 22, whatever, do the math, right? So the length of time, like if we were involved in wrestling and there was that kind of a clinching move or whatever, right? Every time we do that, it's not like we have one mistake, one little stinking seed. There's a name for that in Sanskrit. It's not like we have one of these in our subconscious storehouse that we're trying to override, okay? There was one time that we did it. So there's an original in there somewhere, right? But every time we do it again, there's another one, okay? Now we come to a martial arts class and we learn a new way to do it. That makes it easier, okay? And we've only done it once. And now we're going to spar, and we're going to kind of try to catch that throw under pressure, at speed, or even half speed, right? The adrenals have kicked in, okay? And we have to try to access that. It's not over there. We have to try to access that needle in a haystack among all of the reinforcement that we have to do the mistake, which is another reason for doing training slowly so the adrenals aren't kicked in, right? Repetition, wired into muscle memory. There's all kinds of reasons for doing certain types of drills and exercises that have nothing to do with, I take that back. They don't look like you're fighting. It looks fake, false, right? It just like the kata, right? To the outsider who's always been in fights and wants to do everything at speed, like these jackwagons that post on my videos, right? When I'm working with one of the training partners or one of my guys that are helping me with the video, right? And I take him down or whatever, and they go, dude, I can't take you seriously because you're not doing it at speed. My guys look at those comments and go, no, this is not tagging for points. No, that technique is supposed to like rupture my eyeball or unscrew my shoulder joint or snap my knee. No, you don't do that shit at speed. And if you do practice it at speed, but you always pull your shots, what are you training muscle memory to do? Pull your shots, okay? And even if you land the shot, you're training yourself to minimize power and damage, which is why the fights last as long as they do, okay? So, but you see what happens? So what we have to do with repetition by copying things and making that happen again and again at a comfortable speed is the repetition adds more times that we did it the way we want to do it until eventually this either balances out, or because you don't do this anymore, you don't do the green ones anymore. And what ends up happening is neurologically, your body will start breaking down those neural pathways that allow for you to do that. So that you are now less likely to ever do it. And now this, okay? This is this process of recreation that we do, whether we're looking at the life mastery stuff or we're looking at the martial stuff, okay? So what we're trying to do is reprogram the habitual tendencies, whether they're mental, emotional, physical, whatever, okay? So this is the problem that happens, right? We have to be able to do that under pressure and remember. So we have to try to remember it, right? We have to be mindful that it's happening and not, shit, I missed it, right? Because if we missed it, that's one less lost opportunity, okay? Again, remembering the alternate lesson under pressure when it's starting to formulate, right? And being able to access that option so that your muscles will actually do it when you need to do it. Anyway, so it's easy to sit around and talk about this stuff. It's not so easy when it's time to do it. Okay, so and that's why martial arts is an activity of effort, right? You have to put the effort in, but we have to get ego out of the way. Okay, because whatever we decide is best is what we're going to gravitate to, regardless of what reality's like, right? And both of these are right, but they're both wrong as well. And I'll talk about that in a minute. Okay, but also the way we gravitate toward training, the things we allow ourselves to do, that's official, that's not a whatever. Okay, we have to understand the problem. We have to understand what it is that we're doing. If you're just trying to get belts and ranking to master a martial art from the perspective of I can do the kata and I can spar this way against other guys that are sparring the same way, and there's rules and there's all this kind of stuff, then you don't remember. I teach from a perspective of self-protection and street survival. So, do anything you want, but if you're coming at this from a self-defense strategy, things change. Okay. So here's the thing, right? What if we could combine the best of both of these so that one, we're not stuck on either one, okay, and believing that fights happen this way, or they're just not useful for fights at all, right? But we can take the best of both worlds, and we're doing it from based on the problems, right, of each. Okay, so if this is a problem, then if this is a problem for these guys, then these guys have the answer. If this is a problem for these guys, then these guys have the answer. It's not a one or the other, right? That's egoistic, dualistic thinking. It's got to be one or the other. It can't be both. Yeah, it can. Okay. So what I'd like to offer you today, very quickly, is a framework that allows us to understand the strategy, right, and response and whatnot, right, to literally, I'll go back to my story with my student Richard way back in the day, right? A framework that allows us to make sense out of the chaos. Okay, so if we apply it here, right, it'll be this kind of invisible framework, this strategy that we're using to always know where we are in a given engagement, so we know what to do next. Okay, because we know what the flow should be. Okay, and we can apply it on this side to know whether or not any example that we're given is based on strategic thinking and tactical awareness or tactical application from somebody who knew what the hell they were talking about, and not one of these jackwagons that decided they wanted to be a martial arts grandmaster and made up their own damn system and just throw a whole bunch of shit together. Okay, so there's a difference. All right, so this is based on principles and phases, right? What we're going to do is we're going to outline 5 phases right? 5 phases of an effective self-defense scenario, right? It starts off one way and it leads to a successful conclusion with you getting to go home. Okay, I don't care if he gets to go home or not. What matters is I get to go home. I don't go to the ER. I don't go to the morgue. I don't go to jail, whatever. Okay, now jail, that's on some other format that we have or whatever. We're going to look at 5 phases. Okay, so 5 phases. And this is a key word. Okay, I choose my words very carefully. This is not 5 steps. This is not 5 pieces, 5 parts. Okay, A, B, C, D, E. Okay, 5 phases. So we call this 5D. We call it the 5 Ds of effective self-defense, because I'm going to give you 5 words that just makes it easier to remember, because I'm going to give you, they're each a D word, letter D, right? Okay, or it's a framework for making sense out of chaos. Okay, so the 5 Ds are, oops, almost gave you the wrong one there, first thing. Okay, discern, discern. Uh-oh, what's happening in my brain today? Discern, defend, not the defend you think it is, disrupt, deliver, and discern. Yep, it's there twice. I guess I did spell. Oh, there, that's what I forgot. There we go. D-I-S-C. All right, discern. Okay, so they're not steps, they're phases. And the phases do move in this order, but this is not linear. Okay, this is it's linear in that for success, one leads to the next, to the next, to the next. But this also isn't the way a fight works. I'll explain that in a minute. Okay, so the first thing is paying attention to what's going on here. Now, the very first episode of Warriors Whiteboard Wednesday, 84 episodes ago, 85, whatever we are on right now. Okay, so well over a year and a half ago, I covered the 5 phases. But in that one, I did it from a grappling scenario, right? This guy's grabbing a hold of you and whatnot. Okay, so today I'm going to do it against a striking, kicking attack, that kind of thing, right? So to understand it from the other side, just go back and take a look at the first one. Okay, it's on the page. Okay, so or it's on the channel on YouTube. Okay, so and we'll try to remember to put a link in the description, but just in case I forget, it's episode 1. Okay, so discern, defend, disrupt, deliver, discern. Right. So here's the thing, right? What are we doing at each one? Okay, what are we doing at each one? Okay, so discern. Right, I'm summing this stuff up, right? So it's just easy to write on here. Okay, we're paying attention. Okay, what are we paying attention to? Okay, so this guy's moving in on me. His hands are starting to come up, or he's taking up some kind of a posturing kind of thing, or he might be having his chest jutting forward, but whatever. Okay, so and you'll know. I mean, if this guy's like doing this kind of thing and the hands are open, unless he's really, really, really tricky, he's probably trying to put his hands on you. Okay, this guy's moving up this way, or he's standing there and his fists start to ball up or whatever. He's probably looking to clock you. Okay, this guy starts moving, the hands are kind of loose and whatnot, but he's hanging out kind of high, and that lead leg doesn't have a whole lot of weight on it. Okay, you know where he's going with that. Okay, right. So what I'm paying attention to at a base level is what's it look like he's about to do. Okay. So, and again, the more work we can put into studying different types of fighters, different types of fight or martial arts or self-defense styles or approaches and those kind of things, right? The more we're going to be able to read this guy's body language to get a better clue of what's going on, okay? But this can go really, really deep, okay? What I teach my students is you need to be looking at his clothing, right? Will it inhibit his movement based on the kind of fighter he is, or will it get in the way, right? Okay. What about his shoes, right? How well do they match the ground surface that we're on, okay? Because a lot of these guys, they learn, these pivoting on the foot kind of things, but they're wearing like $200, $300, whatever, Nikes or whatever that have a certain tread on them, and they're on the wrong kind of floor. Oh, I'm going to help them do that type of kick because they haven't studied enough, obviously, to buy shoes that match their fight style. So when they go and torque 90% of their body weight around a foot that won't pivot on that ground surface, and their ankle unscrews, as they say in the movies, my job here is done. Okay, so I want to pay attention to as much as possible, right? I want to understand the environment that I'm in. Do I have usable aids on hand, right? Are the things that I can use for cover? What's going on, okay? I'm also paying attention to not only what I'm wearing, but I'm also paying attention to the emotional state that I'm in, okay? And we've covered this in other episodes as well, but my emotional state and what that's doing physiologically, right, to muscles and how those muscles are affecting my spine and how I'm able to move and whatnot, front, back easily, side, or whatever, right? Hopefully, my training is not just style based in a way where I only have one way to operate, okay? Most people are attracted to style based on their personality type. So when somebody If you know somebody, right, and they start to get a little bit riled up, right? If you understand how this match works, you know how they're going to come at you. Just like most people's personality dictates the occupation they'll get into, or the university degree or whatever they'll go after, generally, right? But there can be mismatches, right? Which is what causes life dissatisfaction. Okay? Anyway, so discern, right? We're paying attention, and this phase goes all the way up to how that fist or foot is unfolding. So we don't move just because they fart before they throw the punch or whatever, right? We want to watch how that's moving and coming around. And that's a problem that when people get stuck on kata, where the teacher demonstrated against a certain type of punch, and then the partner throws a different punch, and the person's not paying attention because they're only moving based on, well, the teacher moved this way. Yeah, the teacher moved that way because the punching angle was a certain type of angle. Okay, this is not mathematics. 2 + 2 always equals 4. Okay, what kind of 2 is it? Right. So this goes all the way to as it's unfolding, because I'm not just paying attention to the punch. I'm paying attention to where space is being created and where space is going away. Okay, I want to know where the hole in space is so I can move in. Okay, remember that Koku explanation? Playing in space. Where's the space? Okay. Most people don't pay attention to the space. They pay attention to the arm that's coming in or the foot that's coming in. Okay. And then we move into defend. So what's most people would pay attention to this is, well, why do you have all this kind of stuff? Because the defend right here is just whip XYZ on him, leave his ass on the floor, and what the hell, right? You're overcomplicating this thing. Yeah, no. What we're doing right here, right, is we're neutralizing the force of his attack. I don't care if you do it by blocking, evading, riding it off, or whatever, right? Because what we need to do, this guy's attack, whether it's a jab, a feinted kick, or an actual thing that's landing, if it makes you flinch, bob, right, you can even move to have it miss you, but if you haven't moved the rest of your targets, right, you're going to be dealing with things because you haven't neutralized not just this one, you've neutralized the next one. Okay. But what I'm doing right here is I'm rendering his attack or his technique moot, ineffective. Okay. So even if he lands it, I ride it off so it didn't snap me back. I'm not stumbling. I'm not folded over and blindsided so the next one can get in. Always remember that good fighters, good attackers will throw things that set up their next move. So if I don't neutralize this one, the next move's going to land. Okay. And the folks that are in both sides over here, whether they're sparring or whether they're doing the whole freestyle, mix it up, doing whatever, right? What they miss, because they keep playing the game of trading shots, they're willing to take one to get one to see who the tough guy is. What they miss is there's no do-over on the street. If this guy hits you and you're semi-conscious or worse on the ground, they can do anything to you, your loved ones, or your friends, or whoever they so choose afterwards, because you as a protector are gone. Okay? They can do anything to you, even if you're not caring about anybody else in the world. Okay? They can do whatever they want to you, because at that point you can't stop them. All right. So here we're neutralizing the attack that's coming in. We're rendering it moot. That's what uke nagash, blocking, whatever is doing. Okay. And so if we've done that, right, we might have to do that a couple of times. But what we're looking for is the thing that we do that either breaks their balance, or we do it in a way that when they miss, it kind of throws them off. In that moment, they're fighting themselves, they're fighting gravity, they're fighting inertia, they're not fighting me. So I can either cut and run, or I can, so in this case, we're going back in, okay? So, but what I want to be doing is I have to neutralize, but what I want to try to do is either intentionally or allowing it to happen. They make a mistake or whatever, to where they're unbalanced. Okay. So in this case, this could be physical, it could be mental, it could be emotional, whatever. I could call them a name. I could say something that causes them to mentally stall, or I could ask them a question or whatever, or I could call them something that makes them, and in that moment, while they're enraging, they're not attacking. Okay. That wind up or whatever. Okay. So, or again, I can block in a way, whatever. Okay. So it could be just a natural thing out of one of these things breaks their balance, or I'm doing things in a way that not only neutralize their attack, but I'm creating a gap either between their tools and the weapons, or a gap in time because they're catching themselves or they're fighting gravity or whatever, that I can get that next shot in or whatever. But what I'm doing here is I'm unbalancing them. Okay. What I'm doing here is neutralizing the force of their attack. What I'm doing here is making it very difficult, if not impossible, for them to carry out their initial intent, their strategy, the way they want to go. Okay. So if they're like coming forward and all that, and all of a sudden I slip that way, and they need to get themselves around, and I flank them. Okay. In that, I can get them. Okay. So I need to unbalance them before, right, I deliver. Not the beef, not the chicken, right? Deliver. That's anyway, joke. So deliver, this is where I get to do my stuff. This is where I'm applying my cool technique. I'm delivering that final move or whatever. Okay. So this is where I get to take the fight to them. Okay. Everything above this line is defensive. It's protective. It's dealing with whatever they're throwing at me. That's the pivot point. When I make that happen, I take the fight to them. They now have to be doing this kind of stuff, right? And I do this, right? If I do that, it takes them down, it locks them up, it gets them running, whatever, okay? And then since we've disengaged, I'm going back to discern. What's discern? Pay attention. What am I paying attention to here? Okay. Well, up here, I was paying attention to what? His posturing, clothing, all that kind of stuff. What am I paying attention to down here? Right? I'm paying attention to one of three outcomes. Okay. Is he down and out, unconscious? Is he running off? In which case, for the moment, it's done, but ... Or have I knocked him back or down, and he's now getting back up, grabbing something new, one of his friends are coming in, whatever, okay? If it's number three, if it's that last one, then this discern automatically becomes this discern for the next round. And I don't mean tournament round. I mean, shit, here it comes again, okay? So this is a way to make sense of the chaos, and I don't need a kata to do it. But if I look at my kata, and they're not just strings of skills put together, right? There's some schools where kata are just skills strung together, and it's more of, from my perspective, it's more an exercise in memory retention than it is about a fight. And I know they can like translate it, so now this guy's coming, and so you're doing that and whatever. But I'm talking about like against one person with one logical kind of thing that's coming at you, right? So now I can overlay this over a technique and go, what's this move doing? When I ask my students, if you're one of my students, if I ask you, what is it? What are you doing with this move? You better not say, well, I'm blocking his punch, or I'm, throwing this kick. Which phase are you in? Okay. This technique's not working, sensei. The throw's not working. Whatever, okay? Or when I go to do the knife hand, he always blocks. Okay, well, what's missing? What was supposed to happen before this? Well, I did that move. Yeah, but did that move do what it was supposed to do? Okay, so here's the thing. If we look at this as a step-by-step ideal, right? Wouldn't that be wonderful, right? This guy comes in, He does his thing. I avoid or I block or whatever, and then I break his balance, and then I knock the shit out of him, and then this is great. I get to go home, right? Wouldn't that be wonderful? Okay. But it's not steps, it's phases. Okay. So here's the way this works. This guy starts moving in on me. I'm discerning and paying attention, right? I might even take up one of our come on, whatever. And I'm going to watch from there. I'm going to start gathering information because I'm a good ninja. Primary skill of a ninja is what? Information gathering. Okay. So I'm paying attention all the way to that attack coming in. And so I'm neutralizing it, right? Neutralizing it is just he didn't affect me the way he wanted to. Has nothing to do with the block. Okay. If I am these uke nagash and these blocks, bridge these two right here. Okay. Because if I don't touch him and I just avoid, then I'm doing this alone. If I'm avoiding and whacking that arm and trying to open things up or knock him off balance or whatever, then the avoiding is this part, but the counter strike, right? So one move, right? This is defending. That one's trying to break his balance at the same time. But I may have to do this 2 or 3 or 4 times. He's throwing things and I just keep evading, blocking, whatever, because those blocks are not breaking his balance. How do I know? Because he can keep on freaking coming the way he wants to. Okay. So there might be a moment, right, in here where his balance breaks, or I try to break his balance and it breaks, but then he stumbles and catches himself. So there was no time for me to do the next piece. So I'm back in defend because he's throwing shit and I'm neutralizing. So I try it again, break his balance. This time I break his balance. I knock him out, take it to him or whatever. And so in one case, he may end up on the ground and it's done. In another case, I may knock him over or throw him, right? So I've executed my technique, but he ended up rolling. He neutralized my thing and he's back up. So we're back in discern, defend. So this is not discern, defend, disrupt, deliver, discern. These are 5 phases that lead from here he comes to where is he now? Okay, hopefully with me in charge. The good thing, there's good news and bad news. Good news, this process works. Bad news is it works for whoever's in control of it. Okay, but let's look at this from the phases thing. This is not, I mean, if it works, defend or discern, defend, disrupt, deliver, discern, then count your blessings. Okay, because it's been my experience that fights and engagements will go discern, defend, defend. You may roll away, leap back or whatever, reset the fight to 0. The fight resets to 0 where both of you are stalking again. So somebody throws a punch or two and then you're repositioning before another punch is thrown. Shit, that's defend, or that's discern, defend, defend, discern. Now punches start getting thrown again. Defend, defend, disrupt, defend, disrupt, defend, disrupt, deliver. Okay. The effectiveness of this is in allowing you to know where you are. If he's not off balance, you have no business trying to execute your technique. If he's not off balance, your job, your priority is not letting him break yours. That's what defend is about. Not letting him break yours or worse. Okay. So that's all this is. Okay. So if his balance isn't off and I don't have an opportunity to move in, then I'm here. If he's not throwing anything, I'm up here. Right? If his balance is broken and I have the opportunity to move in, then I'm here. If I do something to him and he catches himself, I'm back up here. What this allows me to do, okay, because I read this when I first got involved in Ninja Zone, I became interested in it before I started training, right? What pulled me in, which is what pulls a lot of people in, right? Something that seems like it's magical, right? A ninja always knows the right technique at the right time in any engagement. How the hell could you possibly know that unless you're doing a kata and there's a script and he always does this thing? Or you have freaking ESP and you can read his mind, so you always know. But if you had that and you knew you were going to be attacked at the corner of 4th and Main at 3:42 in the afternoon on whatever date, why the fuck would you show up at 4th and Main at, you don't need self-defense if you can read people's minds and know when know that they're going to come at you before they, anyway. So, right? So this is how it happens. This is how I know what move, what skill, when to do what, when to block, when to avoid, when to break his balance, when to actually apply my technique, what to do once he's down, those kind of things, because I know what phase I'm in. Okay? We can use this to learn the options, right? Because this is showing ways to do each of these. Great. This is a way to test how well you can apply this under pressure. When he's not doing something pre-described, he's doing whatever the hell he wants. Huge difference. Okay. So we're going to take a look at this model this Friday. Just go over to the Friday training, Friday virtual training kind of thing. You can do it via Zoom, or if you're coming in for regular classes, that's the theme for this Friday's class. Okay. We're going to be taking a look at the techniques that we're working on and applying some 1-2 step sparring kind of things so we can recognize and we can use this framework. Okay. Now the trick is to do this so often that you don't have to think about it. Kind of like driving. I understand steering, I understand braking, I understand all that kind of stuff. I understand when, how, right? How much is too much, how much is too little, those kind of things. So you're not going to be able to, even if you can memorize this and walk around all the time just spitting this out, it's going to mean nothing, because when the shit hits the fan and your adrenals have kicked in and your left brain is taking a vacation, right, which is what memorized this stuff, okay, you need to intuitively know where you are. How do I do that? And this is where we're going to wrap this up. How do I know at each stage whether what I'm doing keeps me there, has backed me up one, or allows me to move forward? See, we put discern here and we put discern here, but the reality is that discern is going on at every phase. We just started here with what you're paying attention to as he's moving in, what you're paying attention to as you knock him down or away from you. But I need to be paying attention to the effectiveness and when an opportunity arises. And here, which technique is the right technique based on my body position relative to his and what I can get at in one move. Okay? So for all the people that like to comment on my videos that this is a bunch of BS, you just need to put gloves on and go at it, I get where you are. And I understand what produces that mentality. I also understand the ignorance and limited understanding that produces it. I'm not saying you can't fight. I'm not saying you can't win fights. And when I say ignorance, I don't mean that you're stupid. I mean you don't know any other way of looking at things. And that goes for everybody, okay? But the more we know about it and the more we can apply a framework or a process that we get so good at that we don't have to think about it left brain. I know what phase I'm in, so I know what I should be prioritizing. I know what my priority is, and I know what I should be doing with anything I'm trying to do to him. Even if it's evading, right? I could be defending and blocking, and all of a sudden, like this guy's throwing punches, and I'm blocking and blocking and blocking. We have something, foundations of self-defense guys, right? You just got something this past week where we go from here as the launching point for our low blocks, but this guy just comes in firing punches, right? Trying to get into your face, and we back out away from it this way. So he's landing shots, but you're creating a buffer, right? So imagine this guy coming in and slamming at your hands, and all of a sudden you slip, and he throws a punch that he expected resistance on, and now it's not there, and he falls forward. Fan-frickin-tastic. Not only is he off balance, and not only can I hit him, but all of his weapons and shields are that way, and his temple, floating rib, all kinds of shit's right here. Oh, that's a happy day. Okay? But this is a matter of how deep do you want to go with this? And are you executing on tactical understanding, tactical thinking like a tactician, right? How and what is best at the moment, right? Where are we relative to the battlefield, relative to his strengths, our strengths, his weaknesses, our weaknesses, that kind of thing, right? And the strategic thinking that allows for us to be able to deal with somebody who's bigger, faster, stronger, better armed, better skilled, all that kind of stuff, where we're supposed to freaking lose, but we still need to go home. We still have kids or grandkids or whatever to tuck into bed, honey to kiss goodnight, whatever, and a life to live. Okay? People that get into this thing where you're always matched, same size, same rank, same whatever, it's not the same. Okay? Anyway, if you want more, okay, you know what to do. Go to the page, get signed up. I'll see you in class on Friday. All right? That's it. Talk to you next time. Be safe, train hard.